Hey friends, it's Coach Andrea. This is a special edition of Blow the Whistle podcast from recordings we did for Intimate Partner Betrayal Awareness Day. If you missed the live recordings on August 4th, this will be a series of videos from each of the speakers that were featured that day. We had an amazing lineup of people who dedicated their time, their energy, and their effort, and some even offered resources and discounts that you will hear at the end of each recording. Be sure to follow each of the speakers to look them up to see if the resources that they offer would be helpful to you and to send them a note of thanks if their recording speaks to you or the situation that you're going through. Intimate Partner Betrayal Awareness Day was August 4th, and it is August 4th every year. So if you missed it in 2026, be sure to put it on your calendar for 2027. And without further ado, it's time for another edition of Blow the Whistle Intimate Partner Betrayal Awareness Day Special Edition. And I'm really excited because I see my next guest is here and he is bringing a conversation that definitely needs to be had and doesn't happen often enough. So I'm going to add him, Adam Nisenson, to the stream so that we can hear about men getting cheated on too and what that's like for them.
Hey,
Hey, Adam.
howdy, howdy.
How are you?
I'm hanging in there. Can't
Yeah. Now, are
complain.
you in Utah or Houston?
I'm in Utah right now. So
You're in
yeah, where
Utah,
it's
right?
super hot, but at least there's no humidity.
Yeah. Well,
So
that's why I was asking. I'm like, are you enjoying the sweat fest?
yeah, I'm not in Houston, but here we're in that. If you saw in the news, all that smoke and stuff, and so
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
staying inside, obviously. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. For those who don't know you, let me introduce you. As I said, this is Adam Nisenson, aka the Betrayal Shrink.
That's
I,
me.
I have a question about that, but we'll get into that. And like I said, Adam is here really to speak to something that doesn't get enough attention, which is that men get cheated on too. And especially, I think more frequently, I heard you, Adam, on the Absats podcast, and you were just saying how more and more frequently, the stories of men and betrayal and how little it's talked about and how many men suffer in silence because they don't have places to go. So, can you share how you decided, like, this is the mantle I'm picking up and
This is
running with?
it. Yeah. Well, I myself, I'm a betrayed man. So my ex-wife had an affair over 13 years ago. And then as I got into therapy, became a therapist, and I in my practice I only worked with men, and I was surprised how after years of working with men they would start to admit the shame and stuff of them being betrayed, cheated on, and I was like, man, there's something here. And then also I'll admit I was kind of ignoring it myself. I
Mm,
was like, do I want to go down this road? Do I want to put myself out there? Do I want to relive a lot of that stuff, which was honestly one of the most painful times in my life. I would say to the extent of even worse than when my father passed away.
mhm.
And if you talk to men who've been betrayed, I'm sure any betrayed person, I'm in no way am I against women and anything like that,
Right.
right? But I speak for men and what men go through. And I can tell you, because men isolate, they hold it in, it's embarrassing, emasculating, all those kind of things. Also, let's not forget the social stereotypes that are put on men and what we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to be. And men, by nature, we're taught to be stoic and to hold our feelings in and just white knuckle it and put our heads down. So, this is a long answer to your question, but
No, it's a good one
I,
though.
I, I decided, like, yeah, I have to do this and I have to see what I haven't faced yet, and that got me on the journey, right, of digging deeper into this. And then as a CSAT, right, we do a lot of work with betrayal, it was just a natural transition for me. And, I wrote my book, A Man's Guide to Partner Betrayal. I should have a copy right
I
now.
know. I'm
I can
like, wait
find
a
it.
minute. You didn't even put that. I don't. Did you
Oh,
even
wait,
put that on
wait,
your
wait,
sheet?
wait, wait. Man's Guide to Partner Betrayal. I
Oh,
have it.
there it is.
Um, that was lucky because it was right there on my ledge. Yeah, I kind of, through that process, I realized like there were no books. I remember my journey. There was no support. There was nothing that spoke to a man on what a man was experiencing. So I was like, I'm going to write the book on it. I'm going to do this. And that's kind of how I jumped into it. And then just interestingly, today I had a call with a new guy who wants to work with me. And the first thing he told me, he was like, man, I was so glad I found you because I've looked everywhere and there's nothing that speaks to what I'm going through.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, I'm glad you found me. And it also makes me sad that the therapy world, I think it's starting. I've noticed since I've started this that the conversation's starting and more people are jumping into it. And it's so needed. There's so many men that are hiding and repressing what they're going through. And, um, I think we can help a lot of people.
Yeah, I said this on another podcast, but I'm discovering it because I work with men too. That inside many betraying partners is also a betrayed partner. That a lot of the men have experienced betrayal, but not processed it, not talked about it, not dealt with it. And so then when they betray their partner, there's this like shock of like, well, I didn't get all that. I didn't do that. I didn't, like I just moved
Yeah.
on. But really they didn't.
You never move on, right?
Yeah.
Unless you do the work. So,
Yeah. What
for
do
sure.
you think? I mean, because I resonate with a lot of what you're saying around not a lot of help. I get that as a African American person. There aren't a lot of people who look like me in this space. And so
Do
when
it. Yeah.
people yeah, when people find me, they're like, "Oh my gosh, somebody who looks like me." So I need to write the book on, that form of betrayal. But what do you think are the things that stand out that people misunderstand about male betrayed partners?
Yeah. That's a great question. Um, you know, there's so much there. I would say one of the things I've discovered on my journey of working with men is that I don't think our society's made it safe. There's not a language, if you will, for men that are going through this.
Mhm.
Right. Again, back to every book, it talks about the man being the cheater.
Mhm.
Right. So I think first of all, it's the language, which language then creates safety.
Sure.
Right. So if I think if we learn to listen to men, to understand men, another big part of that is men, anger is a big part of this journey. Right. In our society, we tell men don't be angry. Angry men are scary.
Mhm.
Right. And there's been this evolution through the decades where men's feelings have been suppressed and men haven't been safe to express their anger. Also, I think we haven't taught men how to do healthy anger, right? These
Mhm.
things go hand in hand. So I want people to understand that men are angry and that they need to be able to express their anger. Now, I don't mean keying the car and throwing bricks and stuff like that, right? Because
Although you
that's,
might want to.
well, I have taken men to throw bricks, but it's in a different context and they're not throwing it at anything, right?
Yeah.
But I think we have to normalize that. We have to give men a space to get into that anger because underneath that anger is going to be their grief and it's going to be their place to start to heal and their chance to find vulnerability, And then the other part you were alluding to, if we don't talk about this, if we don't let men know that they're okay, if we don't let them know that they're not weak, like statistically, there isn't much data on men being cheated on, right? I think, I don't know what numbers you've seen, but it's like something like 30% of relationships, committed
Mhm.
relationships, have some form of betrayal. And if
Mhm.
you think about it, that's staggering. And then if you think about how many men it's never reported, like I always wonder where they're getting this data from anyways.
Mhm. Mhm.
In my world, I wouldn't be surprised if it's close to 50-50. As many women cheat as men cheat,
Mm,
right? And I think the other part of that is I think men need not only to be safe, but one of the ways I know and I see men become and get to that place of safety is through brotherhood. I do a
mm-hmm,
lot of men betrayal groups. And one of the things I love, and I wish I could take a picture of the guys like the Brady Bunch box in the first group. And then
mm-hmm,
by the fourth group, it's like they change, but they haven't changed, but their energy is different and their sense of being safe and being seen and releasing all of that, it's so
mm-hmm.
empowering. I love it. And so at the end of the day, I think it's brotherhood. I
Yeah.
think there's nothing stronger than, in my world, another man lifting up another man, right? And creating an environment where we're not competition, where I see you, brother, I love you, I understand, and I'm here for you. And I think that's super important. I think that's also another factor that's lost in our society today.
Yeah, for sure. I think the numbers I put on the flyer that I made was that 20% of men betray and like 13% of women. So it wasn't this huge gap, but
Um,
that's just based on what people report. We
I've
don't,
seen one like that. Yeah. Well,
yeah,
think
we,
about it. That's pretty close. So imagine most men don't report,
mm-hmm,
right? But I see, look, sometimes stereotypes have truth behind them, right?
yeah,
And like I said earlier, men will just tend to hunker down. They don't want to tell anyone. Like I will tell you all out there, my own brother and one of my best closest friends didn't know until about 8 or 9 years later.
wow.
And when I told them, they were like floored. They had no idea that's why it all fell apart and why I ended up getting a divorce. And also, I just want to say I got the divorce because there was no reconciling. Reconciling is a two-way street.
For
Both
sure.
people have
What
to
what
want
do
it.
you- what was your fear like if you would have told them, or like what did you tell them, and what was your fear about telling them the truth?
Well, 9 was totally different because that marriage was over. I had moved on in my life. So, you know, I, it's a great, I've never been asked, why didn't I tell them, right? I definitely, some of it was shame. I already had a few, I had a few people that knew, and I didn't want more to know. I didn't want them judging. Like I stayed for many years after. I
Mhm.
didn't want to be judged. I didn't want to deal with it. I was lucky. I felt like I had a few guys. I had enough support at that time
Mhm.
to navigate it. But yeah, I think it was more. I just didn't want to be judged, and I made up a story that they would have been, get out of there and that guy thing. You don't need her, like those kind
Yeah.
of things, which no one needs when they're going through that because
Mhm.
the pain's so overwhelming. Thinking about those other things doesn't help at all.
Yeah, and I hope what a lot of people who are listening are hearing is, yes, there is difference, which I'm going to get into in a little bit, but there's a lot of similarities
Yeah,
behind men who are betrayed and women who are betrayed. Like, being a man doesn't um protect you from the pain. And in fact, I think that in some ways men are at a disadvantage, and this gets into what you were saying, in that society as a whole, boys don't cry, suck it up, go to the gym, you
all the
know
time.
I mean, and I was talking about this on a different space, but men are not taught relational intimacy unless they have a man who has healthy relational intimacy in their lives. But if you do this recreational intimacy where you hang together and you do things together, but maybe you're not having the conversational intimacy of going deep with, how are you feeling? How's your heart? What's on your mind today?
Yeah,
And so to come out and say, hey, by the way, my wife cheated on me, when you're not talking about anything deep, makes it really hard. And women can cry in public, and we can, people will comfort us. You see a man crying in public, and he might get some judgment. He's supposed to be in the
yeah.
man box.
Yeah.
hard.
You'll go over to the woman and say, "Are you okay?"
Yeah,
But the guy, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of differences, and
yeah,
there's plenty of similarities. I'll throw this out there too. Another thing, the more I'm in this and working with men, and you alluded to it when it comes to race and seeing where we identify with someone. There's a huge gender imbalance in therapy. I think it's only 30% of therapists are men,
mm-hmm,
right? So often I could see, I remember we went to a female therapist, and I remember in my mind, I was just sitting going, there's no way she's going to understand what I'm going through.
mm-hmm,
Now, that could be true and not true at the same time,
mm-hmm,
right? I don't
mm-hmm.
know her story because I think once you've been betrayed, I think that's a community no one wants to be part of, but I think there's a universal pain,
Yeah,
right? And also, I think universally, all of us are afraid of being judged and being misunderstood and also being analyzed, right? I didn't ask to be here, but here I am, right?
yeah. You can tell me if this is true, but I consistently see when I work with men who are betrayed, um, they they want to talk about it, but not really. There's this like, and I think you said this in your own story, kind of like, okay, I'm going to talk about it, and then I'm ready to move on. And so there's this sense of like, well, part of you healing is being able to tell your story, is being able to talk about it, but finding the language to do that can be tough. Admitting
Yeah,
that it hurts as bad as it does. And then, like I just did a consult yesterday with a male betrayed partner, and the sense of like, if I'm a man, I'm gonna fight for my family, and it's like,
hmm,
well, yeah, but you're wounded.
yeah,
Something awful has happened to you, and we gotta talk about that. And I think for a man being in that victim place, it can be hard.
yeah. I call it the ego trap.
Hmm.
I think we all have one, right? I think for men, we get stuck in that ego trap, which then really kind of amplifies all those core wounds. But the other big part with a man is I think betrayal really destroys the three P's: the protector, the provider, and the partner part
Hmm.
of them, right? And a man's ego is all about that's what gives us worth,
Hmm.
right? Is can I perform? Can I do all these things that men are supposed to do? Well, if my partner goes outside my relationship, what does that say about my ego, my sense of self? So often I watch their egos fight for survival, right? And
Hmm.
and I want to say this, I think ego gets a bad rap, right? Like I
Hmm.
think how people use it, and in this context, when I talk about ego, I see ego as the part of me that I project to the outside world. It's how I want to be seen. It maybe is how I'm seen. It's the part I think I can control,
Hmm.
and often it's the part of me that gives me my external validation,
Hmm.
right? So if you think about it in that context, man, betrayal wipes that out completely, right? And so it's the ego wound is more than just about vanity, right? At the end of the day, it's a complete identity collapse,
Hmm.
and I think I think that's important to know and to remember when you see a man going through this, right? And when he puts his head down, and I work with so many guys like we were talking earlier, never doing the work, right? I had a man in one of my groups that the affair was 40 years ago. Not making this up. And can you imagine 40 years ago, man, that had to be horrific because there were probably no books about any betrayal or ever, right?
Hmm.
And sadly, his wife now has dementia. And he felt like she was betraying him again. And it all came back, and he realized he never did the work. And God bless him. Like he did my group. He was our elder, and his wisdom. And I just give that to you all as a cautionary tale. Like, don't wait to do this work. I always tell my clients what I call the gift of betrayal. And people look at me like I'm crazy. What's the gift? And I'm like, there's so many gifts. If
Mm-hmm.
you choose to see them, if you choose to step into it. Because also at the end of the day, look, I would never tell anyone that's betrayed that they caused their partner to do what they did.
Right.
However, you're an active participant in the relationship. So what did you miss? Where were you not showing up? Where could you be better? Where were
Mm-hmm.
you withholding, right? All those kind of things. This is the part like I learned, like I didn't know if I wanted to get married again, but I knew I'd want to be in relationships, right? And I knew I never wanted to experience that kind of pain again. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a chance to look at yourself, look at what's looking back at the mirror and actually do something about it. It's not
Mm-hmm.
the other part is I want people not to think about like what happened to me. I want them to start thinking about who am I moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
It already happened, right? We don't fix the past. We can just fix the present. So I think that's really important in this work.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm gonna have a headache by the end of the day because I'm just like
I
nodding
don't know
my
how you're
head.
doing this all day too.
I just
Wow.
listening and nodding my head in agreement with all that you're sharing. How do you work with a man who maybe is already struggling with that emotional intelligence and oh, that's women stuff? Like he knows he's hurting,
Yeah.
but like you said, that ego fighting with the masculine identity. How do you help them to recognize it's just part of their humanity?
Yeah. Which is part of that journey, right? This is a good question too. I mean, everyone's different. Nothing I know I do or you do would ever be cookie cutter with someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But look, I think for everyone universally, when you're working in betrayal, you have to get through that initial shock and what I call just the ego injury. I think the
Mm-hmm.
two things go hand in hand, right? And I think if you get them through that, I think then that opens up a whole nother world. And then the next world is everyone that I know that's ever been betrayed starts to question their own sense of self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so this is slow. This is like, I like to use the metaphor. If you ever watched a cruise ship turn, it's slow. There's tugboats usually helping and people
Mm-hmm.
watching. This is not, look, if you think you're going to get over this quickly and you want to move on with your life, you can. And I promise you that parachute will be open behind you. And as you move, you will constantly feel it the rest of your life. So you have to get over those things. Like you have to work through the shock. You have to work through that self-worth stuff. And then what I always find is usually after we get to that, usually the anger in a different way, a more
Mm-hmm.
healthy anger, not the shock of anger or the anger
Mm-hmm.
that comes through shock, but then you can get to that anger part and all the projection. And then every betrayal person struggles with the competitiveness and the jealousy. I can't speak for women. I know for men, man, revenge fantasies, I had them all my clients do. Actually, I'll just say I would actually say revenge fantasies are not unhealthy. Now
Mm-hmm.
acting on I would never don't ever right? But there's something like I will have some of my guys sometimes like tell me just share their latest revenge fantasy and they'll share it and they'll be like, man, that's crazy. And I'll be like, that is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Something when you do that, you can you release it, you surrender, right?
Yeah.
And then that's what happens next in this work, right? We find a place of withdrawal and then we can start to let all these things go and then you get to start to rebuild.
Yeah. That you made me think of another question in terms of the sexual injury that comes, working with women betrayed partners. Of course, reintegrating back into that sexual relationship is really hard. Curious what
Hmm.
you're seeing with men, especially around the ego of like, hey, that's my
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah. Well, let's you brought it up. Let's talk about the stereotypes,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't know what you see, but often what I see is men tend to struggle more with physical affairs versus emotional. And I feel like what I usually see is women struggle more with the emotional versus the physical. I've had,
Mm-hmm.
well, they only did it one time. And I'm like, that's a one time too many. What do you,
Yep.
right? I mean, look, I mean, for me, and look, because I've done my work, I know I'm a sensitive man. For me, I think both are terrible, both have no place. I think an emotional affair ends up creating a deeper wound, a deeper gap, because I think it gets into the essence of what a relationship is,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, I see that as a difference.
Mm-hmm.
When men, I'm trying to remember exactly how you posed your question, but I do see men often. What I want everyone to be careful of is I kind of call it reclaiming sex. I'm going to reclaim my turf,
Mm-hmm.
right? I've had partners report to me that the betrayed man was maybe not physical in a mean way, but more aggressive and claiming their turf, and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like. So, you know, I think sex, physical intimacy comes much more down the road, right? It's very common after people have affairs that there'll be that sexual experience where they try to reconnect, or right.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't lead anywhere, I think, but to more confusion for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you about, whenever somebody says, "Well, did you tell her you loved her?" It's like, but he slept with her 15 times. It's
yeah,
like,
no, what is that even, right? Yep.
right, like, I mean, it matters, but to some people there is this distinction of like, oh yeah, if this is emotional, and I agree with you, that is that's what it's so tricky, I think, and I'm glad you wrote a book. I'll have to get your book and read it. Because when I was listening to you on the Absats podcast, I was like, wait, I still have a question. Wait, come back to this part of the conversation, because what I see is there are some general dynamics in relationships, period, even those without betrayal, right? A
Yeah.
man plays this role and a woman plays this role. And when you experience betrayal as a male partner, it's like, what does that do to the dynamic in a different way, where now the man needs more comfort, he needs more safety, she needs to give him empathy, all the things we say about, betrayed partners, this power imbalance where he's kind of calling the shots. But like, what if he was calling the shots before, but not in a healthy way, and now
Yep.
she's afraid to let him do that, although he needs to be able to have some agency back. Like, how let's talk through that, because I
You
think
just brought up like 10 different
I
topics
know.
in one thing. Well, actually, but you made me think of something I think is really important. And I'm going to take what you said. I'm going to ask a question we can talk
Mhm.
about boundaries,
Mhm.
right? Because that gives us agency. That gives us, right, all those different things that I think both partners need on the betrayal journey.
Mhm.
I want to say this to any betrayed person out there, right? Boundaries are important. Boundaries are, I like to use the metaphor, they're the guardrail, right? You're
Yep.
not going to go drive on a big tall mountain in the dark and fog if there's not guardrails up, right? And so you need that. But let me be really clear. Boundaries are not punishment.
Mhm.
If your boundaries ever feels like it's punishment or to get even or even to control, that's not a boundary. And I can tell you right now, it's not going to go well for either one of you on this journey, right?
Mhm.
And so boundaries, I'll just say, I don't know about women, but what I tend to find with my men is boundaries are hard for men to do, right? And it's some of the hardest work we do, and it's some of the most rewarding work. And another big part of this, after you're betrayed, your sense of worth, right? I was saying earlier, is gone. So just the idea of a boundary alone is difficult. I can tell you, I wrote about it in my book. One of the biggest ahas I had writing my book, and it pissed me off, but it kind of healed me too, was I realized I was really afraid to give her boundaries. And the
Mhm.
reason why was I was afraid if I gave her boundaries and I was too rigid or however it was spinning in my head, I was afraid she would leave me. I was afraid she would say, no, I'm not going to do that, and did it right. And I made up all these stories. At the end of the day, what I really did by not giving boundaries and upholding boundaries was I gave permission for the
Mm-hmm.
affair to continue, and I wasn't in my power, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I also I think every partner in a betrayal relationship or not, I want to see my partner in her power. I want to see her in her brilliance. I want to see her in her truth. And I would hope she would want the same from me. And so right there, it was not only was the relationship already unhealthy, but the fact struggling with boundaries makes it even more difficult. And I think the likelihood of reconciling, and Carol Sheets has all her great books, Help Her Heal, Help Them Heal, and all that. Actually, news, myself and my wife Judith, I'm remarried, and Carol are writing the book Help Him Heal. So
Oh,
I
breaking
know. So
news. Breaking
breaking news,
news.
right? Carol, I hope that's okay. I share that. I think you've shared it before. So hopefully it gets to the publisher by the end of this year. But right, it's like we have to help our partners heal. It's
Mm-hmm.
super important, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's part not only for your partner, but for the betrayer. I think it's part of what gets you back into accountability, into integrity, and it helps you heal also, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you're on I was talking to Barb Steffens earlier about how she created something that just got momentum, and we're all, experiencing the fruits of her labor. I think that's where you are with really bringing this male betrayal to the forefront, and like pushing the message consistently, writing the book, doing the Help Him Heal. 5 years from now, what do you want to be different?
I mean, I want men. I want men to feel safe. I want men to come forward. I want men to know they don't have to do this alone. I
Mm-hmm.
want this to be a conversation. I mean, as much as I love being the only book out there on it, I would love some more books on it, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like I can't do it all. I want people to step up. I want us to, yeah. I want men not to be alone anymore.
Yeah. Have
Yeah.
you talked to like AppSats about adding more material around male betrayal to the partner?
There's been some conversations and
Okay.
stuff. So
All right. Good.
yeah,
Good.
I think they're starting to do it. They've had me on some stuff, right? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Well, I appreciate you. And if you guys didn't hear him, his wife Judith works with women who betray, women who
yeah.
are the betraying partner.
We
And
flipped
so
the script,
that
if you
you
will,
sure did. You
together.
sure
Yeah.
did. And so if you're needing support from that, Adam is the Betrayal Shrink. You can find him. He's got lots of resources on his website. You can get his book. And Adam, you also mentioned that you have a PDF handout called Seven Mistakes a Man Can Make After
Yeah.
Betrayal. And people can get that if they email you.
Shoot me an email, Adam at betrayalshrink.com. Pretty
All right.
easy.
I will
Yeah.
put that in the chat. And thank you so much. I hope this isn't my last conversation with you, because I think that as we give people permission, there will be more men coming, more men who say, "Hey, thank you for opening the door for that." And I think we need to be ready.
I agree. It won't be the last time. We'll hang again.
Okay. All right. Well, have a good one. Tell Judith I
Thanks.
said hi,
I
and
will.
we will see you next time.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.